Hello, welcome to the Onyx Path News. It's been a little while since I was last here to broadcast this news for you, and as with all live casts, I am aware that the first people that show up are going to come in about, I suppose, 30 seconds to a minute, maybe 2 minutes in after I've started talking. So often the preamble is utterly pointless, much like most things in my life. Yeah, it's been a very interesting month or so since we attended the Midwinter Gaming Convention. I suppose it's been over a month, and there's been so many new releases. Kickstarters, a go-go, and one is currently wrapping up. It's coming to an end, and it's done amazingly well, better than we thought it might, which is always nice to know. So as I ramble on in this, as I say, opening preamble, I just want to let you know, Onyx Path, still doing well, still making games, still releasing something new every single week. And that's no small thing. It's something that I think a lot of people don't even realise, that when we do a release blog every Wednesday, that is a new game, or it is a new sourcebook, or it is a new peripheral, a new product. And hello, Red Moon Role Playing. I don't know which one of you it is that's operating the account today, but you know I love all of you, just as you love all of your listeners. And yeah, so in fact, let's start with something a little unusual. Red Moon Role Playing. So Red Moon Role Playing are a podcast group that have committed to producing high quality, well edited audio dramas, basically, out of role playing games. We who participate for Red Moon Role Playing play through games as one normally might. It then goes to one of the Red Moon Role Playing team who edits it, puts sound effects, puts music, and generally makes it the kind of product one might want to listen to for fun, even if you are not typically the sort of person that enjoys listening to RPGs being played. And the reason I mention them is because they have been so committed to supporting Onyx Path's products. The number of actual plays we've done with them now, let's see. So my first one with them was They Came From Beneath the Sea. Hello, 307 RPG. Fantastic show, by the way. They Came From Beneath the Sea with a very Lovecraftian vibe with Red Moon Role Playing. We did Scarred Lands. We've now got two Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition chronicles, one being The Sacrifice, run by Clara Herbal, one being The Family, Cults of the Blood Gods, run by me. We have also done Mummy the Curse, 2nd edition, in tune to that game's Kickstarter. There may even be more that I'm forgetting. And of course I've ran games for them and participated in games for them that aren't even Onyx Path related. So why am I giving them a shout? Well, because frankly I think their show is fantastic. It has done really good stuff for drawing attention to our games, and I wanted to say thank you very much to the Red Moon Role Playing team, and I do encourage you all to listen to them. But I don't just encourage you to listen to them, I also encourage you to listen to 307 RPG, because they took the time out to comment on this video. Give us a thumbs up. If you've not given us a thumbs up, 307 RPG, do it now. And I think any show that is committed to making content come out on a weekly basis, in some cases daily, in the case of Red Moon Role Playing, it has really got role-playing games at heart. They love this hobby. They sometimes even love the industry. They love the people in it, and they really want to support it. So it is fair and reasonable for us to support them in turn. We've had a lot of people give us a hell of a lot of support through running games on our Twitch channel as well. We've had, let's see, Devil's Luck Gaming. So Devil's Luck Gaming have been running a Hunt of the Vigil Chronicle to tune into the 2nd edition Hunt of the Vigil Kickstarter that's currently ongoing. You've only got about 3 days left on that, so do be aware. Hello, George. Hello, Yalma. I miss playing with you, Yalma. I miss your voices. Craig's range isn't as expansive as yours, Yalma. Sorry, Craig. I know it's a competition. But neither of your ranges are as expansive as mine. So yeah, we've got Devil's Luck Gaming on our Twitch channel. who have been running. They ran a fantastic Scarred Lands campaign, still going backwards and forwards, where they're playing pirates in the Scarred Lands D&D 5th edition setting that we sell. They have also just started up a Hunt of the Vigil Chronicle, which I really recommend you check out. It's excellent. It's very popular. And they will be dropping a new series soon. We also have a whole load of content that gets uploaded to this channel after it's been on Twitch, including really popular chronicles such as Little Brook Reunion for Changeling the Lost, a shout out to the Primogen, that's his YouTube channel name, because he produces excellent content for both Vampire the Masquerade and for us when he's running games on our channel. We have Paws and Claws for Pugmire. We have, I think, 2 ongoing Changeling the Dreaming Chronicles now. We have Blood City for Vampire the Masquerade. There's the Behind the Screen show for Scion, a guide on how to run Scion Origin and Scion Hero. There's a whole bunch, and I don't intentionally miss anyone out. The reason I don't mention everyone is because I simply can't remember everyone at all times. But my best advice to you, lots of love back to Germany. I love Germany, Delta. It's one of my favourite countries. I just want to say that do check out the Onyx Path blog every Tuesday morning, probably, because you will see links to all of our ongoing actual plays, to any reviews we're made aware of, that kind of thing. And as Redmond Roleplaying know, I am truly from Alabama, which is why I set my They Came From game there. That's where I'm most comfortable. So, now that we've actually got a few viewers, I should point people in the direction of Hunt of the Vigil 2nd edition, which is currently on Kickstarter. Now, when you live stream these videos, you don't actually get the opportunity to put the description in beforehand, so I'm relying on you to type in Hunt of the Vigil 2nd edition or just Hunt of the Vigil Kickstarter into Google, so that you can find the Kickstarter. I'm mentioning it, and the reason I'm making this video now is because you only have 3 days left to back, probably less than 3 days now in terms of just time, and so it's very important. This is the last of the 2nd editions for Chronicles of Darkness, and well, in terms of core books, at least currently on the docket, so don't panic, anyone. Oh, well, that's a good question, George Bodica. I'll get to. Is it Boudica or Boudica? I suppose with the umlaut, it's probably Boudica, such as the old Brittonic hero. Or heroine, if you prefer. Anyway, Hunt of the Vigil, 2nd edition. I imagine Boudica would have been a hunter, probably, if I was to revisit the Arthurian era from the Dark Eras 2 book. Or Roman era, if I did Roman invasion into Britain. Anyway, Hunt of the Vigil 2nd edition Kickstarter, Take Back the Night, as Jason Italiano says. Indeed, take back the light, light your candle, light the way, and illuminate your vigil. I am a big fan of Hunt of the Vigil. It's always been one of my top 3 for Chronicles of Darkness games. Some of you familiar with my Gentleman Gamer YouTube channel will know I ran a 3-year consecutive game over UK Games Expo. And it was so popular that even without having any contact with the players from each game, I was able to somehow get the same players to sign up year after year after year. And that was a great, well, I guess, compliment to me and my GMing, but also, or storytelling, I should say, but also to the game itself, which focused on slashers. And 2nd edition Hunter has the slashers as the main focus, one could say. Something not a lot of people know, or not everyone realizes, is that 2nd edition Chronicles of Darkness, every single core book has a name and chronicle. So, for instance, you may have been familiar that Blood and Smoke, Vampire the Requiem 2nd edition, was the Strix Chronicle, and Werewolf the Forsaken was the Idigan Chronicle, and we've gone on and on and on. In the case of Hunter 2nd edition, it is the Slasher Chronicle. And I believe the Slasher material is going to drop very soon. For those of you who have backed the Kickstarter, you can review the entire manuscript. You only need to go in at about $5 and you'll be able to see the entire manuscript, so that's a pretty good deal. So yeah, I recommend it if you're a big fan of tactics, teamwork, group play, playing frail and fragile mortals going up against monsters that are horribly more powerful than you. You've got elements of Call of Cthulhu in that. You've got elements, of course, of Hunt of the Reckoning, but often, but not always, lacking the supernatural element. And so there's more support in terms of like being sponsored by governmental organizations or being well-funded private hunting organizations. Hello, Travis. Travis, if you could link Hunt of the Vigil second edition Kickstarter in the chat log, that would be sterling. I've already put you to work. You turn up, no sooner do you arrive than I am making you post links. So one thing that I was asked in the chat log just there was, do we have any plans for Demon the Fallen in 2022? And the answer for that right now is we always have an interest in doing World of Darkness games, whether they're 20th anniversary edition or 5th edition. The biggest question is whether Paradox want us to make it. So the biggest conflicts one would have is that there are 5th editions coming out right now, and most companies are reticent to support a game line for a previous edition being released. So I think you're almost more likely at this point, and this is me speaking for myself rather than for Onyx Path, I think you're more likely to see a 5th edition for Demon, even though it's only had one, but using V5 rules but adapted for Demon, than you are to see a 20th anniversary edition. That would be my guess, but I guess time will tell. We'll have to see, won't we? So, we haven't been here for a while. I've not been streaming live for some time, and that means I've not been able to tell you about lots of new releases that have come out. So most of you are going to be familiar with the fact over my shoulder there, we're looking at Chicago by Night, not Eclipse Phase or Call of Cthulhu Berlin. We have Chicago by Night. Chicago by Night is available in retail. It is available to everyone. You can go to your local game store, your local bookstore, and you can buy Chicago by Night. And so for those of you who felt or thought that Onyx Path books were only available on DriveThruRPG, you are mistaken. There are many of our games that are available in bookstores and game stores. Often, though, it just takes ordering them. Because we're fairly new to getting our books into retail, retailers don't necessarily order great big pallets of our stuff. So it helps us as a company a great deal, and it helps the retailers too. If you go in and you ask for them to order books like Chicago by Night, Changeling the Lost, Pugmire, Scion, Trinity Continuum over there, other books that we have put into traditional print. It helps a great deal. Geist will be there. I think Mummy the Curse will probably be there as well. So there's lots of games of ours that you can order into stores, and Chicago by Night is one of them. Now, if you don't have a local bookstore or gaming store, and any bookstore should be able to order it, you just might need to tell them, can you get Asmodee to order it from the special order list. That's what you should need to say, to be honest. Because if it's not immediately available when they type into their computer, oh, I've just typed in the ISBN, or I've just typed in the name Chicago by Night and I'm not seeing it come up, you need to ask them to put in a call to Asmodee to actually, if it's in the UK, or Studio 2, to actually order it off their special order list. But all stores should be able to distribute it. Anyway. If you don't have that kind of access, eventually it will be available on Amazon. And if you don't want to shop on Amazon, because everyone orders on Amazon, you can always order it from DriveThruRPG. You can still just buy Chicago by Night PDF only or print on demand. So whichever you prefer, you can do it. And Travis, if you're still watching, post some links to Studio 2 and IPR if you are able to, because those will enable people to order the books in print. What more do we have? Well, we've actually had lots of new releases over the last few weeks. As I said at the very beginning of this call, we release something new every single Wednesday. We've been seeing releases of Vigil Watch, which is a fantastic series of Scarred Lands supplements. We also have Spilled Blood for Vampire the Requiem 2nd edition, which finally reintroduces Bloodlines into Vampire the Requiem, and I don't think that's a small thing. A lot of people love the way Bloodlines are presented in Requiem. And you can get Spilled Blood on DriveThruRPG, both PDF and eventually print on demand. We have also had, what have we had since the beginning of the year? Book of the Fallen, of course, for Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition. Again, not a small release. Book of the Fallen was a massive project, a massive emotional undertaking, and it shows. It's a deeply dark and at times quite off-putting book by design. It's not supposed to be a fun book as such, and it certainly isn't there to encourage you to play Nefandi. But what it does do is really present evil in a very compelling and horrifying and true way. There's an awful lot of the author's personal experiences poured into that by both Satyros, Phil Braccato, and Jacqueline Brick, but it's handled with extreme sensitivity, and I really do recommend checking out Book of the Fallen. It is a book we were very careful about, and yeah, do take a look. Otherwise, and going completely on the other side of that track, for Trinity, over my shoulder, we have, of course, you can buy the Trinity Core. You can buy Aeon for Trinity as well. I'm never sure. Is it Aeon or Eon? I think it's Aeon. And just last week, you've been able to buy a set of ready-made characters for Aeon 2. And ready-made characters may not float your boat. Some people find them exciting. Some people don't. But I think the biggest advantage of having a book of ready-made characters is it means if you're the kind of person that attends games conventions or wants to run a game just straight off the bat, having a book of ready-made characters allows you to do that. You know, you just roll with it straight away, especially if you order it in PDF and print the pages yourself. But of course, if you've just got the book, you can always tear the pages out and then just order it again. But yeah, ready-made characters are always a good thing, and I wanted to give a little bit of love to the Trinity line as well, because in my local area, I mentioned before, I'm surrounded by gaming groups, games clubs, games stores, and things like that. I'm very fortunate in that regard. And the amount of people playing Trinity right now, not even Aeon, but the Trinity Core, because the rules are presented so well, because there's so many story hooks, so many player options within that one core book I keep pointing to over my shoulder, has, well, quite frankly, surprised me. I'm not someone who is intimately familiar with the Trinity line, so when I see a game suddenly develop this swell of support, I think, oh, I wonder why I was never familiar with it. Now I've got it, and I can see why it's so popular. And yeah, it's just incredibly impressive. It's a really well written book. The art in it is fantastic, and the players in my local area really seem to be enjoying it. I've even started seeing it being played at conventions. So do check out Trinity Continuum. If you like pulpy games, if you like throwing fists at Nazis, if you like plotting heists or foiling heists, if you want to play low-powered heroes in either contemporary or interdimensional settings, Trinity is a fantastic building block, and Aeon only expands it further. So please do take a look at that. So yes, as I mentioned earlier, Hunt of the Vigil 2nd Edition is currently on Kickstarter. Don't miss out on that. But we also still have lots of books on BackerKit, some of which are only on BackerKit for a very limited time now. That includes They Came From Beneath the Sea, and I can tell you for a fact that's for a limited time because it's now in indexing. All errata has been incorporated, the interactive character sheet has been built, so that means that book is very nearly done. So if you haven't backed They Came From Beneath the Sea on Kickstarter or BackerKit yet, Travis, if he's still here, may be handy enough to post a link to the BackerKit for They Came From in the chat. This will be one of your last opportunities to back it at that level. What's more, you can still back books such as, and I think again for a very limited time, I think Dark Eras 2 is still on BackerKit, but we are just, we've incorporated errata, and so that's all being changed to the PDF now, so again, not long left there. We have got Mummy the Curse 2nd Edition, of course, Cults of the Blood Gods. We have Aberrant as well for Trinity. And yeah, I do recommend going on to BackerKit.com, typing in Onyx Path, And yeah, thank you 307RPG for looking forward to They Came From Beneath the Sea. I'm at Tabletop Scotland later this year. I'll be running 2 sessions of They Came From, so will Clara Herbal. I'm at UK Games Expo as well, along with my peers, Clara again, John Burke, Chris Allen, Steffi Devan, Matt McElroy. We will all be running They Came From Beneath the Sea in a tournament of They Came From. Everyone will have their own B movie. Every group will have their own B movie, and then they will each ascend to the final run by me, which will actually be an award-winning shitty picture. But the people who participate in that will win prizes. So if you get the opportunity to come to UK Games Expo, do take part in that tournament. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and a very noisy room, actually, to play a game in if we're all running They Came From at the same time. What else? Okay, so now, in fact, I should probably check the time. Okay, I'm still good for time. So, in that case, I am going to open it up to questions at this point. Oh, and while you're all formulating what questions you have, something that we don't give enough focus to, and we should give more focus to, is community content. You know I talk about community content every single time these videos go up, but these videos don't go up often enough because I'm often very busy. And currently I'm redlining They Came From Beyond the Grave. Preston Bobo says, are you going to continue your Scion series? I loved it and would love to see more. Yes, I am. Are you talking about my Scion recaps or my how-to on Scion? Because I could do both. But yes, the thing we don't talk about enough is community content for the Slurisian Vault, for Pugmire, Monarchies of Mao, and also I guess, the Storypath Nexus and Storyteller's Vault. And yes, the how-to guide for Scion will continue. I have just been absolutely bogged down with a lot of projects with red lines, and I'm sure you would rather see books than videos, but as and when my time permits, I will do it. So yes, do check out those community content programs. Storypath Nexus keeps coming out with really good stuff for Scion and Trinity. And what's more, the Scarred Lands community content program, which ultimately Travis Legg is such a massive part of, is a blossoming little garden. So I think that it's something very much worth checking out. There's so many brilliant products on the Slurisian Vault. I pick them up whenever I can, and Travis is really putting the authors of that community content to good use in other fields that I cannot go into right now. But what that is also to say is not only support our authors on community content, but also if you are looking into getting into writing RPGs, writing community content is a fantastic way to get your foot in the door. I think it goes without saying, or although if it did go without saying, I wouldn't have to say it, that individuals like Travis Legg and various of our other freelancers really got their names on the map by creating community content. It gives us, people at Onyx Path and other companies, a product to review to see whether you're the kind of author we want to hire, or layout artist, or editor, or artist, whatever you happen to be. So let's have a look at some of these questions. Would Hunter the Vigil 2nd be a vast improvement without suffering its simplicity? I think 2nd edition is a vast improvement. And I loved Hunter the Vigil 1st edition, mind you, but I thought that some of the tactics and endowments were horribly flawed, so I'm very pleased with the way 2nd edition handles all of that. There's obviously going to be some content from edition to edition that people dislike, but for me, in the main, and I can say this having not worked on Hunter 2, that it really hits all the buttons I need it to. And I was dubious, actually, being completely candid. It's a game I am so fond of that I was very cautious about how good it would be. Because sometimes you can create a new edition for something and it just doesn't need it. And especially when it's a game about mortals. We already have the Chronicles of Darkness core book, so what could Hunter 2nd edition give us? and I was incredibly surprised, pleasantly so, when I came to develop Contagion Chronicle, co-developed Dark Eras 2, because it gave me an opportunity to look at the manuscript for Hunter 2nd Edition. And I'm just really impressed with what the writers and the developer brought to the table for that book. So many fantastic ideas. It's really dark and quite gut wrenching at points, quite literally gut wrenching if you're involving slashers, because they will grab your guts and wrench them out. So yeah, I advocate looking at Hunter the Vigil 2nd Edition. I think it's a brilliant edition of the game, an improvement, and you want to complete the 2nd Edition Chronicles of Darkness set, don't you? So, what else do we have? Are there plans for a third installment for They Came From? Perhaps They Came From Outer Space? That's a good question, 307 RPG. Let's finish They Came From Beyond the Grave first, but I think having a trilogy at least would be nice. I wouldn't do They Came From Outer Space, however, because we've already got Beneath the Sea, and that pretty much handles aliens and alien invasion scenarios and Cold War analogues in a way that Invasions from Outer Space also do. It's very easy to change Beneath the Sea in that regard, which is why we've gone in a slightly different direction with Beyond the Grave. Beyond the Grave is still comedy, but it's not the same kind of farcical comedy as Beneath the Sea. So each one needs to strike a slightly different tone as well as a slightly different genre. So I would be looking hypothetically at... So I had this discussion with Rich Thomas and Eddie Webb, in fact, colleagues, bosses, etc., Onyx Path. And initially I thought, well, the next They Came From game I want to do has to be deadly serious. I don't want it to be comedy. But they both pointed out that it's a very good thing that we have a line that can support comedy so well. So few role-playing games can. And so few role-playing games actually implement comedy in a way that players enjoy. People don't like to be told what is amusing. They like to have the tools in front of them that allow themselves to be amusing. So Beyond the Grave, and indeed other genres of movie or TV show or other fiction and the like, shows that you can make parodies of every single genre. And you could look at westerns like Blazing Saddles, you could look at spy movies like Austin Powers, you could look at all number of things. If you're British or maybe even European, you may... I'm European, damn it. And some people are going to hate me for invoking this, but I'm a big fan of the Carry On series of comedy movies from the 1950s and 60s mainly. That's around the time they were at their best. And, oh yes, the comedy in the Carry On movies is very obvious. But what they show with movies like Carry On Spying, Carry On Up the Khyber, Carry On Follow That Camel, Carry On Up the Jungle, Carry On Henry, as in Henry VIII, Carry On Cleo, is they can insert comedy at absolutely any point and parodying any medium whatsoever. So I think we can do the exact same thing with They Came From. We just need to make sure it is aimed in a slightly different direction each time. That's a long-winded answer to a very simple question. Since you are displaying an Eclipse Facebook, does that mean a game in the future, says James Burns? Yes, I will be running Eclipse Face for people who support me on my Patreon. Matthew Dawkins on Patreon. Right now I'm running V5 and Pathfinder for groups there. Can you tell us what you're working on? I'm working on a few things. The three main ones I'm developing right now, They Came From Beyond the Grave, the NWE, Aberrant Wrestling RPG, and also the Book of Lasting Death for Mummy the Curse 2nd edition. I am also developing and writing on games outside of Onyx Path that I can't announce at this time. I'm also writing for lots of games too, and always writing outlines. Currently the outlines for the Cults of the Blood Gods Kickstarter stretch goals are with Modifius for approval, but once they come back I'll start developing and co-developing them with various people, so that'll be fun. If you're not playing Scarlands, you should. We love it at 307 RPG. Good for you, because I love it too. Good morning from the west coast of the colonies, Matthew. You're up early, Ken, if you're on the west coast. What would that be? LA, Seattle, Portland? When is V5 Mage going to come out? Are we going to see it in the next 5 years, says Timmy Burns. Well, let's see what happens with Werewolf 5th edition first. I don't think... Well, books may end up being developed in concert, mind you, but it really depends, and it's not something I could make a call on. They Came From Beneath the Bed is actually a concept I had, George, for a Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, young adult horror style. So they came from beneath my bed, in a Goosebumps way. Now, I think the big problem with doing that right now was I proposed that before things like Tales from the Loop and things from the Flood and Kids on Bikes became a big thing. I'm not trying to say I thought of it before Stranger Things, but I did. And what that means now is we'd kind of be riding on the coattails of other people. Beneath the Sea does something that no other game does. Beyond the Grave does something no other game does, in my opinion. And I think From Beneath My Bed would be a little too close to some of the other you're playing kids and teenagers in a dramatic situation. So it's actually a really good idea. It's just not the right time for it, in my opinion, anyway. But what do I know? Thank you, Sumi, for backing Hunter the Vigil 2nd Edition. That is what I like to hear. Travis Legg says, if you've not checked out Hometown Heroes and Uptown Shadows actual plays on Twitch, you should see Hunter the 2nd in action. And Travis is right, because the Hunter the Vigil 2nd Edition actual plays we have on twitch.tv/the Onyx Path are really popular and such high quality. You would be really doing yourself a favour to check them out. They're really entertaining. Any second edition of Changeling the work, says Lisa Eggleston. Well, we already have a second edition of Changeling the Lost. I've got it over my shoulder somewhere. And we've got books for second edition Changeling the Lost being worked on by various developers. And yes, Paradox owns Mage the Ascension. They came from beneath the saddle, Travis. That sounds like something ticks and crab flies, botflies might do. If you're at all familiar with horses, and I am. They're the kinds of things that like to nest beneath saddles. There's a Mage V5 hack going out. Excellent. I like the idea of Hunger Dice as Paradox Dice. Speaking of Scion, any news about Scion Masks of the Mythos? You can check out the current status of that excellent game by Chris Spivey. He's developing it on the Monday Meeting blog notes. And then a third edition of Changeling the Lost. Oh, maybe. I think it's the most popular, one of the most popular Chronicles of Darkness game line. So if any was to get a third edition at some point, Changeling would be one of them. Delta says, my question is about the possibility of clan novels or a combined Lore of the Clans book for VTM 5. I would be all in favour of more of both of those things. Although I wouldn't see Lore of the Clans for V5. So clan books on their own don't sell brilliantly because people are more fond of some clans than others. Clan book Ventru sells amazingly well. Clan book Grumbleduke or Ravnos does not, because the Ravnos aren't as popular, never have been. So, how do you present them? I would present them in volumes, like the Libellus Sanguinus books for Dark Ages, so that you have some popular clans and unpopular clans grouped up, maybe 3 or 4 books. But ultimately, all it comes down to is what Modifius and Paradox are happy to approve. With the V5 Player's Guide coming out from Modifius, hello Modifius, that may actually answer some of the questions people want from a clan book. So let's see how that book goes, whether it contains the kind of information people want to see, and if it's something that needs to be expanded, then we could look at a clan book or clan volumes or something like that. Daniel Wright says, I'm really enjoying the Chicago Folios book. Any news about when Streets Run Red is coming out, says Daniel. We don't release dates, but Streets Run Red is currently having all the art coming in for it, and it's nearly all done, so then it just needs to be laid out. It won't be too long, I imagine, but we are entirely dependent on artists submitting the work we have paid them for, or will be paying them for. Hello, Scott. Hi to you. Hi again, everyone. They came from behind the closet, within the closet, surely. A bit Narnia-like. Does Onyx Path have any ideas for supporting books for Werewolf 5th edition, asks Ken. Definitely. Thank you for taking the time to do these live streams. I know you are busy, says Jason. I am busy, but I do like to speak to everyone occasionally. More like a vanity project like By Night books for not-so-meta-plot important cities, right? So this will be the last one I answer, and then I'm going to have to get back to work. So city source books, much like clan books, have a varying degrees of popularity. So I guess They Came from Within the Closet could actually be like a Stonewall-style game. I wouldn't necessarily put it as a comedy. It could be quite an interesting story. Anyway... in terms of city source books, there are various scales of popularity. Chicago is, of course, always going to be very popular because it's typical for Vampire the Masquerade. And if you haven't listened to the V5 Chicago by Night deep dive on the Onyx Path cast, do so because you'll find out a lot more about that. Whereas if you did a book like, I don't know, Duisburg by Night, you would probably get far fewer buyers because far fewer people know about Duisburg or care about Duisburg. Sorry, Duisburg. Some of you would have never even heard of Duisburg. You have to be very careful about where you're setting a city book. You also have to give enough player options in a city sourcebook for people more than storytellers to want to buy it. And that means, for instance, Chicago by Night has the La Sombra in, it's got lore sheets. Much like Cults of the Blood Gods, it's got lots of powers in, it's got the Hecata, it's got Oblivion. So, yeah, you could do things like Oklahoma City by Night, possibly, and get away with that. You could do St. Louis by Night, you could do Paris, you could do Berlin, you could do various capital cities, and you could be reliably assured that some people would buy it. But the trick, whether you're doing it on the Storyteller's Vault or via official channels, is they always have to have something that draws players in. Otherwise, if you look at the makeup of most gaming groups, that's 1 in 6 people who's going to be buying it if you're only marketing it to storytellers. And even then, 1 out of 5 groups is going to buy it because most of them are running it in their own home cities. They're not interested in setting it in Copenhagen or wherever your by night book is set. Which is why I'm quite looking forward to Let the Streets Run Red, because Let the Streets Run Red presents a multitude of domains. We have, let's see, so in Let the Streets Run Red, you have got Milwaukee, you've got Indianapolis, you've got Gary, and of course you've got Chicago, and you've got the tiny domain of Millington, Illinois. So we've got lots of domains, not as the central feature, but for people who like that sort of thing, it's the sort of thing those people will like. And with that said, I am going to go and get on with my work. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Do support Hunter the Vigil 2nd Edition Kickstarter while it's still on Kickstarter. Only 3 days to go, so don't miss out. And do realise that you only have to back for $5 and you can still check out the entire manuscript for that book. That is no small thing. Thank you, and good night. He says. Cancel, you bastard.